Hi, I'm Heinbach. It's good to have you back. In this video, I want to recreate one of the most fun experiments I remember still from university studying musicology. And that is how music can guide the narrative of visuals, in particular film. In this experiment, where we were shown one film with 3 different soundtracks, I realized the power that music can have. So when Felt Instruments reached out and asked if I want to play the new Celeste-based sample instrument Helenko, I thought this could be the perfect opportunity to recreate this experiment and also for me to do some scoring, which I'm actually missing very much. Felt Instruments are also sponsoring this video, which is very nice of them. So the goal for this video is to take one film and color it differently by composing 5 different soundtracks. And I'm going to be using only Helenko for that. But before the music can happen, I have to have film. So I took some footage I shot in my visit to the beautiful city of Coventry and made a little vignette. Something that could be an insert in a documentary. It could open up a documentary or an indie film. Just something that shows a little poetic look at that city that's amazing in its brutalist architecture. It's not a big action scene or anything like that, but I think this reflects the reality of composing for media, where oftentimes you get not so super exciting footage and have to color it. So let's start. The first idea I had was to make this something very intimate, basically zooming into the picture and taking a microscopic approach by playing very sparsely, accentuating the cuts. And I feel this draws you into all the little details, such as the flowers much more. And it makes this somewhat closed up in itself. It rests within the picture. And for that, I used the sustains bank within Helenko, which is the pure samples of the Celeste. And what I did to modify that was I closed the lid fully, so it wouldn't be too close, because when the lid on that instrument is open, you're almost inside of it, and that can be too much. So I added a bit of echo and reverb, just a touch to make it sit more in the mix. It's all the effects inside that plugin, and I turned down the key noise so it wouldn't be too clanky. This had to be fragile. Now with this soundtrack, I feel this works like a vignette, something where you had maybe a heavy story before and then you needed a light moment for people to relax and then transition back into the story. But that's an exception. That's something that doesn't happen too much. What happens more in media composing, at least in my experience, is that you need to do something that drives the story forward and creates tension. this soundtrack, I tried to create one big movement above everything. So you don't get too much focused into the details and are more thinking what's going to come next. The goal is to create tension after all. That is why I employed an arpeggio pattern, and I'm using the Novation Summit for that. This way I'm not emphasizing the picture transitions and don't try to zoom into the picture, but rather, make this part of a larger narrative. And it leaves you thinking, what's going to come next? What's going to come next? So this piece is something that could even be an intro, or you could have a nice narrator about it, telling stories like, in the city of Coventry, the brutalist architecture contrasts with, I don't know, I'm not a voiceover guy. So, but very different approach to the soundtrack. I used 2 instances this time of Helenko, and both is the Days of Our Lives patch. It's in the name already. It has that story-driven feeling. It is the same pattern throughout, but I'm using automation to give it more variance. Because once you add modulation on this patch, this kind of shimmery broken effect starts to happen. And then you can add a synth, which is polyvox. And it's kind of detuned, and it might be too much for some. So be prepared that if you're using that and you've got someone who's very, tuning conscious, you might have to redo it. But I really like it because it adds a nice tension. Then I had the hardest time adding a second note, which is just coming in the part where we move to the human world, where we move to the, to that car park shopping center. Was hard to figure out how to do exactly because of the detuning, but once it fit nicely. I went for a magical feeling here, something that's a bit maybe Harry Potter, Tim Burton soundtrack-ish. Again, an arpeggio using the Novation Summit, and then a secondary melody that adds drama and makes you think what's happening after. I did a bit of a no-no by going into the black, going over the size of over the length of the actual picture, so that in the cut, this might have been edited out. So, but I think it fits. And in the end, I'm the director here, so I can do that for once. I'm using the Rosemary Was Right bank here, which adds vocals. And these sound very crushed. And what Tomek of Feldman told me is that he's using only vintage digital effects for that, like 8-bit samplers or a Publison Infernal machine, which is very interesting. I found this bank to be one of the most playable in this instrument because, it can do this plucky, 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 but it can also do the woo. My God, great musical terms here. But I don't know how you would react if I keep talking about legato, ostinato, and all of that. I think I'll keep it to woo. This turned out pretty somber, and I'm using a lot of empty space to give these choir-like sounds, which I wouldn't have expected from a Celeste library. It's space, and it resonated with me because if you've haven't been to Coventry, there's the beautiful cathedral, which is a blast of glory. And it's a place worth visiting once, even if you're not a religious person, and I'm not. So it's just a testament to beauty, especially the window inside. The choir in that sound is an actual choir, and it's a guided mumble improvisation, according to Tomek. And I find that really, really, really beautiful. So even though I keep hearing the phrase, "I am my bananas," I wonder what you are hearing. It's just random how the brain tries to construct patterns. Really beautiful. It's like looking in the clouds. So this was very inspiring. And it's all just, one take of this. This is the fastest I've ever done something, like 5 minutes or something. Beautiful. Very inspiring. I think we've transgressed beyond anything a Celeste sample instrument ever was with this. It's the Lighthouse patch, and it's a massive kick together with crazy sounds. It's just that. And it turns this film into something absolutely dystopian. 27 days later, 28 days later, 29 days later. How many of those did they make? I think this is so cool to have something so rough inside something that starts so beautiful. So kudos to Felt Instruments for putting something wild like this in there. As you can see, I'm just using 2, 3, 4 notes here, and the rest is all just modulation. Seeing all these soundtracks together makes me really happy, because it makes me realize again what kind of superpowers music has in shaping a narration. This is something that in the practice of composing for media can get lost, because oftentimes the setting is different. There is usually a brief, or there is intent of what the music is supposed to do, and the situation that you can just do whatever and tell whatever is just not there. It's just so interesting to flex the compositional muscles in that way, and it makes me appreciate making music even more than I usually do. This is beautiful. Thank you, Felt Instruments, for sponsoring this video and providing me with a tool to realize this little experiment. I'm really curious what you would score to these images. So I'm going to upload a link to this to the subreddit, and then you can try your hand at scoring my little filmic vignette. I'm curious what will happen, and post it anywhere and tag me, and I'm looking forward to seeing your soundtrack to these pictures. All 5 tracks from this video will be on the Patreon. Thanks to everybody who supports what I do there. And thank you all for listening. Any questions, please put them in the comments or visit the subreddit. I'll be seeing you in the next one. Bye.